and thank you for tuning in for today's video. Today, we're gonna be making a beat making workflow video within the MPC. I love filming these type of videos, and I noticed that you also enjoy, and I get some great feedback from you when I make this type of content, which is a win-win because I really enjoy just hanging out, making a beat. I'm working on the MPC LIVE MK2. This is also gonna be useful for anybody rocking the MPC 1, MPC X, or MPC LIVE. Same workflow, just a different layout. So let's jump right into it and see what we come up with. So right here I have a blank session. The only thing I have loaded up in track 1 is some of my drums. These are drums from my latest drum kit, link down in the description if you guys want to check that out. In this beat, I don't really have an idea of where I'm gonna start or what I'm gonna do. I don't know any BPM. It's just a 2-bar sequence with 80 beats per minute. Disregard that because this most likely is going to change once we find the sample. I'm gonna go into my browser. I'm actually not gonna be sampling from no vinyl record or anything like that. I'm actually gonna go into this folder. This is actually a folder from Sam Poetry. Sam Poetry, I'll leave a link down to his sample pack, but he's got some really good samples, melodic samples right here. Let's go through and see what sample we're gonna choose right now. Oh, okay. All right, that actually feels really good. I'm gonna load that into the MPC. It's not a notepad, it's just loaded into the MPC's memory. Now I'm gonna go to my sample editor, and once I jump into my sample editor, I already have that sample that I loaded into the MPC. That sample does not live in any program or is not in any pad. It's just inside of the sample or the MPC's library or the sessions library, ready for me to do whatever I want to it. Right now, it just sounds very fun to chop up because there's a lot of space for me. There's not drums. There's no drums going on, no percussion instruments in the background. It's just a melodic piano loop that sounds really nice. With something like this, that is a slow tempo. The tempo feels really slow, so it gives me a lot of space to do my slices and to play around with it after I'm done doing my slices. I'm gonna go from trim mode because right now it's in trim. I'm not selecting a specific loop. I'm just gonna start chopping up. I'm gonna go from trim to chop mode. And in chop mode, I'm gonna select manual. So what that means is every time I hit one of these pads, it's gonna manually select a slice. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's a lot more. I filled up bank A all the way through D. There's still banks E all the way through H. So there's so much you could chop up, but I'm gonna stop right there. I'm not gonna be banking through those other ones. Before I convert this into its own program, there's one thing I wanna let you know. I know a lot of these chops that I did, they're a little off timing. I'm sure they are. I didn't get everything perfectly within the downbeat. I'm okay with that. I'm gonna just convert this into a program, even though there's some imperfection slices. The reason why I'm okay within this sample is because there's no percussion, there's no drums, there's no hi-hats, there's no congas in the background. So I think I can come up with some pretty interesting mistakes if that's the case. So I'm gonna go ahead and convert it. If there is a slice that's very off, I can always go back and readjust the start of that slice, which is really cool that you can do that. I'm gonna go to Shift, Convert, and I'm gonna create these slices into its own program. Now when I go to main, my track 1 is where I had my drum kit program. And on track 2, I'm gonna leave it open because I'm not sure, I think I'm gonna put a drum break in track 2 because I'm listening to the sample and I think it would sound really cool with a drum break. And right here on track 3, I'm gonna go down to my drum program, scroll over, and now right here I will see the new sample program that I chopped up. All right. So the reason why, I was actually just talking with somebody about this, but the reason why I like to chop up my samples in manual chop mode, and usually I'll go for quarter notes, is because there's 2 things you can do. You could either listen to a record and say, whoa, there's a really cool 1 or 2 bar loop that I heard, and you can sample that 2-bar loop in the MPC. Just set your start point, your end point, and then you have a perfectly selected 2-bar loop. Drop that into your sequence, put some drums on top of that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine if you want to do that. I personally like to chop that up into quarter notes because If I do want to just leave that integrity of that loop, I can do that, but I would, perform that with the quarter notes that I chopped up. But once I have that chopped up into quarter notes, I can do whatever I want with it. I can replay that melody 100 different ways. So it gives me more flexibility to get creative and to rearrange that 2-bar loop to whatever I want. There's really no limit to what I can do. So for an example, I could have just selected this sample and just looped it. But since I chopped it up into quarter notes, I can go in right here. I'm actually gonna drop this sample program into -2 semitones, so it's pitched down a bit. Okay, let's say that's just a 1-bar loop. I can rock with that. But since I chopped this up into quarter notes, I can do this. Okay. Oh, yeah. So now I'm kind of freaking the sample. I'm kind of recreating something with my sample. Again, there's not a right or wrong way, but to me, this is the fun part about sampling. Just chopping something up as much as you can so you can rearrange this and recreate something. That, to me, that's where I get my inspiration from. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. I can go and spend hours in this process. When I'm making a beat, you got your drums, your bass, your sample, this and that. This part of the process is where I can sit down for hours and just, I love this part. I don't know anything about tempos. I've said this before. I don't really, I'm at 80 beats per minute right now. I'm not sure what the tempo is. Right now, I'm already getting inspired with this loop that I'm doing. So the way I'm gonna get the tempo of this, I'm gonna just play what I'm doing. Right now, I'm not worried about no metronome. I'm just playing according to the way it feels. And I'm gonna hit tap tempo every time I tap a pad. And what that's going to do is going to give me a BPM that I'm performing this at. That's so funny. It's actually at 80 beats per minute. So I got lucky right there. And I'm gonna lay something down. I'm really inspired by the sample. I'm gonna start with the sample. Okay, so that actually sounds really good. I love where this is going. Like I mentioned before, I left track number 2 open just in case I want to add live drums because this sample is a little slow. There's piano. It's not a lot going on. So I feel like if I throw some live drums in this, the drums will shine really nice. So I'm going to go into my browser and I'm actually going to go into these sample packs. I'm gonna go into Sam Poetry. He also has poetic breaks. Oh, that sounds good. I'm gonna load that break in. Again, the tempo, don't worry about the tempo right now. We're just gonna listen to. That sounds good. All right, I got 2 breaks that I loaded up. Now, the song is at 80 beats per minute. I'm gonna try to get these breaks to match up 80 beats per minute. I'm gonna start with this one right here. Now, right here is gonna be a little different. I'm not in manual chop mode. You could do manual chop mode, but I'm actually gonna select a loop. I'm setting the start point of this drum break. When you're in trim mode, if all these pads will do a different function. I'm not gonna go through what they do, but if you hit pad number 1, it's just gonna play from start to finish and stop. But if you hit pad 16, it's going to loop whatever your start and end point is at. And it's gonna keep looping. So that will help you adjust your start and end point until you get a good sounding loop. I'm gonna hit process, discard. Now I have a 1-bar loop. Now we're gonna get the BPM of this and try to match this to 80 beats per minute. I'm gonna scroll over as you guys saw right there. I'm gonna go from BPM. How many beats are in this loop? There's only 4 beats in that 1-bar loop. So I'm gonna drop this down to 4 beats. Now it's telling me that the original BPM of that drum break is at 89.69 BPM. I don't want that. I want it to go down to 80 beats per minute. There's two ways you can do this to match that. You could either tune this down, so it's gonna pitch down, so it's going to mess with the pitch of that drum break and bring it down close enough to, right here is like, that's close enough to 80 beats per minute, but it's going to tune down those drums. So let's listen to how this is gonna sound. I'm okay with tuning down drums. I don't have a problem with that because there's no instruments. So it doesn't sound like it's off key. It's just drums, it's percussion. I'm gonna go to the other drum break that I have. Same thing, I'm gonna select one bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Cool, I just selected one bar. And now on this one, let's try the other way. I'm not going to pitch this down. I'm just going to go to process. I'm gonna time stretch this just so I can show you guys how I would do it with time stretch. There's 4 beats in this loop. So it's telling me that the original BPM of that loop is originally at 93 beats per minute. But I want this to be at 80 beats per minute. So I'm gonna drop this down to 80 beats per minute. That's approximately 13 beats per minute that we're gonna bring this down to. So we're gonna listen to how clean does that sound. 13 beats per minute, right? Hit do it. Now it's gonna process that, it's gonna time stretch it. Now let's listen to how this sounds. It sounds good, but it's not great. Like it's 13 beats per minute is pretty drastic. So just know that when you're doing 10 beats per minute, time stretch, it's okay, but you're going any further than that, it starts to sound a little artificial. What I'll do right here is, I don't know which one's gonna work, but I'm gonna hit play on that melody that we recorded and perform some of these drum breaks and see which one feels better. I like break 2. I'm gonna lay down break 2. Now, the reason why I'm putting this drum break, the reason why I chose break number 2 is because there's air, there's space. Break number 1 sounds a little too tight for me. I'm gonna put those tight sounding drums with my drums, but I like the sound, the texture of this drum break. It's open, it's loose, and you can hear the reverb and the space that that drum break was recorded on. That's beautiful, I love that. Now I can go to my drums, and now that I'm on my drums, if I want to, maybe I don't need to, but I can add some kicks and some snares on top of that drum break just to add a little more in-your-face sound to those drums. All right, what I'm gonna do to add my drums on top of that drum break, I'm gonna get off quantize. I'm gonna go to Shift TC, and as long as that's not lit up, it's gonna be off quantize. The reason why is because I'm gonna use my drum break as my guide, and I'm gonna do my best. It's not gonna be perfect, but I'm gonna do my best to use that as my metronome, that drum break. And I want to go according to that. I wanna follow that, not the metronome that's in the MPC. So then I'll lay down my snares. Let's lay down those kicks. Now I'm gonna go through real quick, bar by bar. I'm gonna just do one bar within the camera and then I'm gonna fast forward the rest. But I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna zoom in right here. I was talking about this on my last video, how to get in phase with your drum breaks, because if the kick that you're adding is out of phase with the drum breaks kick, it's gonna flop and your kicks are gonna sound weak. They're actually gonna sound minus thick. So you wanna make sure you're in phase. The way I like to get them in phase when we're dealing with these MIDI notes, because they're not waveforms. If you're in the DAW, you can see the waveforms and you could get so meticulous with everything in a DAW. You can see everything. But right here, we're not gonna see nothing. We're just gonna listen to the sound and do our best to match our kicks with the kick of that drum break. The way I will do it, I'm gonna go bar by bar, and I'm gonna hit play, and as I'm listening to the kick, I'm gonna start with the kick. I don't care about the hi-hats and the snares. I'm just listening to the kick right now, and I'm gonna do my best to align those kicks. I'm gonna use this nudge and don't snap so I could nudge over any kick that I need to. Like this is off face. It flops. Much better. There you go. This one's flopping too, the second kick. I'm gonna nudge it over. I'm gonna lower down the velocity on this one. Nudge this one over. Now I'm gonna go to the snares and do my best to match those snares as well. Yeah. So that's how I'm matching my kicks and my snares. I'm just listening to it, and I'm using the nudge and don't snap, and I'm just matching them by ear. Are they perfectly in phase? Maybe, maybe not, but I'm just listening to that punch. And if it sounds like if it's flopping, I'm going in there, I'm zooming in, and I'm nudging over a few ticks left or right until it sounds like it's punching through. This is probably not for everybody. This workflow is not gonna be for everybody, but for me, I enjoy sitting down right here and just nerding out within this grid editor and just taking advantage of these little features. Nudge and don't snap, nudge over to the left, to the right. Like, I enjoy those tools, and I'm okay with sitting down and doing all this by ear. So after making sure everything's in phase, I will continue. Like, the kick and the snare is the part that I'm most careful with. The hi-hats or any other element within those drums, I'm okay if it's a little loose, but the kick and the snare, you will feel the flop if it's not in phase. So that's where I wanna make sure I'm getting those the way I need them to be. Now, the cool thing about layering your drums is, as I'm going through, I'm adding my flavor on top of that drum break, but I'm using the drum break, the feeling of whoever was playing that drum break. They have a better groove than I do. So that's why sometimes I like to layer my drums on top of a drum break, because I want to do my best to follow along some of these guys' performances that are very well put together. Now, the other cool thing about adding my drums on top of that drum break, let's just say I want to add some reverb to the snare. I will actually go into the snare, which is my snare that I added on top, and I actually could select this single pad, go into this reverb, and I actually like air verb. Air verb is actually really nice. I'm gonna bring this down, and now I can have some reverb on top of that snare. You know, it's actually funny. I'm filming this video right now, and before I hit record, it was just supposed to be a beat making workflow video, but I guess this is a little more technical beat making workflow video. If you're just getting started in the MPC, do not freak out about me talking about phase and doing this with nudges. Like, don't freak out. You don't have to do all that stuff. Just have fun, okay? Later on, you can come back to this video, rewatch it once you feel comfortable with dealing with those type of things. But I'm actually just going with the flow. I'm putting a beat together, and as I'm putting a beat together, I just want to talk with you the things that I run into. I didn't plan out me talking about this right now. It's just something that's coming out. Maybe there's a reason why I'm talking about this, and maybe you needed to hear this, but hey, this is something that has worked for me. Let me know if you guys also layer your drums. Let me know down in the comments. How do you guys go about phase? Do you guys have another method that I probably don't know about yet? I would be more than happy to know that. But right here, you could even go to this sequence, copy the sequence, put it in sequence number 2, and then once you're in sequence number 2, I'll go into my sample, and I will delete my entire performance right here with the sample. And I already have my drums rocking right there, so I can just go in through different banks of these chops and create a different variation. So maybe I can have like a bridge. So right here, I'm gonna add this. Then right here, I can actually mute the drum break. and just leave the one shots on top of this kind of like a bridge section of the sample. And then I'll jump back to sequence 1 as my verse. Now, I'm really glad that we put this video together because, again, this was supposed to just be a workflow video, how I make beats, but I guess this is a little more in depth for anybody that's trying to layer drums or percussion on top of each other. I'm glad this came out the way it came out. For those of you, I don't care if it's just 1 or 2 people that this resonates with, this is worth it. This is all worth it for me. I hope you enjoyed this time with me. I hope you enjoyed this beat. I'm gonna definitely finish it. Hopefully I have it done by the time I'm finished with this video and I put it out. If you guys have not seen my previous video on how I'm using track mutes to create variations, make sure you guys check that out. I'll leave a link somewhere up here. Y'all have a blessed day. I'll catch y'all on our next video. Peace.